And now I'll call on Graham Day, Convener of the Environment, Climate Change and Land Reform Committee, to speak on behalf of the committee. 5 minutes or thereabouts, Mr Day.
Thank you, Presiding Officer, and I welcome the opportunity on behalf of the Environment Committee to provide our views on the review of national outcomes. In practice, having just 46 days to complete parliamentary scrutiny of such an important document proved from our perspective quite inadequate, limiting, as it did, engagement with stakeholders. We wrote to 12 stakeholders seeking their views on revised national outcomes and proposed national indicators within our remit, receiving responses from 7 of these, and those responses informed both our deliberations and interactions with the Cabinet Secretary and her officials when they appeared before us. So the committee did make best use of the limited time at its disposal, but self-evidently, and in the view of the committee, the scrutiny process would be more robust if there was a more flexible approach, or a more flexible approach could be deployed, as has been discussed earlier. In considering the review, members looked at the 3 key existing national outcomes that relate to the remit of the Environment Committee, noting these have been replaced by just 1. We recognise the desire to have focused outcomes. However, Scotland has, for example, world-leading research capacity, and this underpins everything we do. So we would welcome the Scottish Government's view on the call for re-inclusion of research and innovation within the national outcomes before the framework is finalised. We also looked at the national indicators to track progress in achieving the revised environment national outcome, and these too have changed. The committee has a number of recommendations on the indicators. We asked that the Scottish Government give further consideration to including a climate change adaptation and mitigation related indicator and an indicator of resilience from a climate change adaptation perspective. The committee also heard calls for Scotland's carbon footprint and greenhouse gas emissions in consumption to be a national indicator. We'd welcome the view of the Scottish Government on this and on how it might be calculated. We'll be considering the climate change indicators for greenhouse gases and carbon footprint and the target against which to track progress within our scrutiny of the forthcoming climate change bill. We heard concerns about the absence of an indicator in relation to land ownership by type. Some thought this was a missed opportunity in light of the renewed policy emphasis on land reform as a driver for sustainable development in Scotland. The committee itself had concerns in relation to the indicators for the green economy and resource efficiency, and we'd welcome further information as to why the indicator relating to growth in the green economy was not included, why there's no resource efficiency come a circular economy indicator, and why the indicator to increase renewable electricity production has been dropped. The committee has recently completed an inquiry into air quality in Scotland, and we would welcome further consideration of the need for and the benefit of including an indicator that assesses the reduction of pollution and the impact of this on the health of the population. The committee will be focusing particularly on the marine environment over the next 3 years, and there are 3 additional indicators associated with this. We consider the health and cleanliness of the marine environment as a priority, and an overall assessment of the marine environment requires additional indicators. However, we question the usefulness of an aggregate indicator for Scottish seas, as this could potentially mask problems in specific locations. We sought assurance that the Scottish Government reporting on the sustainability of stocks will focus on specific issues and areas of concern, in addition to reporting on the general trend. While the new indicator relating to sustainability of fish stocks is an improvement, we wonder whether it alone is sufficient in providing a good indication of the health of Scotland's marine environment. We understand the biodiversity indicator is to be revised to include terrestrial and marine biodiversity, and we welcome this. However, we note there is no clear descriptor for this indicator, and we're disappointed that this has not been included in the review. The committee explored how the outcomes and indicators will be measured and what further work is planned in relation to this. We are concerned the proposed draft MPF does not specify targets, and we consider it could be improved by better connecting the outcomes to the underlying targets. More work needs to be done to ensure indicators are more specific and measurable. The committee expects to see environmental indicators embedded across all outcomes, and we welcome the alignment of the NPF with the Sustainable Development Goals. We encourage the Scottish Government to consider further opportunities to connect the NPF more closely to the SDGs and reflect this in the final framework.
Members in his last minute, but yes, I'll let you make up the time.
Thank you.
Cabinet Secretary.
It's just to make the point before this turns into a trend. The Sustainable Development Goals are absolutely aligned to and fundamental to every aspect of the National Performance Framework, and I think all members should be aware of that.
Mr Day.
And I thank the Minister for that clarity. The committee considers it would have been helpful if the review had clearly set out the criteria used for assessment of the indicators and recommends the Scottish Government include this in the future review documents. But overarching all our consideration is a concern that reporting progress in meeting the indicators on an aggregate basis may, and I stress may, mask problems or issues in particular areas and in meeting specific targets. So we would welcome an assurance that information on specific areas of concern will be highlighted when reporting on indicators at an aggregate level. Presiding Officer, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr Day. And I call on Gordon.